Morning, Pilgrim. Let's get back to this sympathy thing. That thing that there seems to be so little of in the world today. True sympathy, Christian sympathy. Some say that there is, well, very little Christian sympathy abroad today. I don't believe them, except as regard themselves, maybe. I dare say that they have measured other men's corn with their own bushels. That's a good expression, isn't it? Measuring other men's stuff by your own measure. We should all have the same measure, shouldn't we? When any say, oh, there is no love in the church, I have always noticed that without exception they have no love themselves. On the other hand, we've heard others say, what a blessed unity there is in the church. When we come to the tabernacle, it does us good to get such hearty shakes of the hand and to see such love in our brother's eye. When they speak thus, I know the reason is that they carry fire in their own hearts. And then they think the church warm, while the others carry lumps of ice in their hearts, and they imagine that everybody must be as cold as they are. One of the great impediments to Christian sympathy is our own intense selfishness. Each of us. We are all selfish by nature. We're born that way. Look at a baby. What's the first thing he does? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Yeah, we're all selfish, like little babies. God can help us grow out of that. It's a work of grace to break this thoroughly down until we live to Christ and not to self any longer. How often is the rich man tempted to think that his riches are his? It's his stuff, it's my stuff. Leave it alone. Well, a certain lady, when she was accosted by a beggar who asked charity of her, she gave him a shilling, saying, take that shilling. It's more than God ever gave me. The beggar said, oh, madam, but God has given you all your abundance. Nay, said she, but I am right. God has only lent me what I have. He's given me nothing. He's lent it to me. All I have is a loan. I would that all who are entrusted with this world's substance felt that it was only loaned to them, that they were just stewards of all the bounty. Now a steward, when he has orders to give a poor man a large sum of money, he doesn't say, dear me, that will make me poor. No, he never considered that. He never considered that which was entrusted to him belonged to him alone, and so he gives it freely enough. So remember, you have nothing of your own, especially as Christians. Nothing is ours. You've been bought with a price. You're in double sense stewards unto God and should act as such, living to God. We should devote ourselves to the good of the race, the human race that God made for Jesus' sake. Another hindrance lies in the customs of our country. Yeah. We still have amongst us too much of a caste system. Such customs, the exclusiveness of rank is not readily overcome. It is not so. I thank God in this place of worship. What's it like in your church, Pilgrim? But I've known many places of worship where there are tiers of Christian people, layer on layer, who never associate with each other. In some places of worship, they put up in conspicuous letters, free seats for the poor. I've never seen that in my life, but I think they're there and you just don't see them. I hate that. Then you have another class, respectable businessmen. But though they sit at the same table with the dons, big shots, and my lord, this or that, they never think for a moment of speaking to them. When people come out of church, what a gradation there is. Have I not seen in many a country village how, first of all, the squire goes out, then the bailiff follows, and then all the poor people, they curtsy and bow to show their abject servitude and serfdom. And all this in a Christian land. In our descending places of worship, what stiffness is there? What rustling of the silks up one aisle, and what quietude of the cottons in another, separated by money. When the members come together, Lady so-and-so, who sits yonder, or Miss this, who sits there, will hardly recognize Nancy that, or Betsy so-and-so. Now I feel as much pleased in associating with the poorest of God's saints as with those who are the higher degree in this world. Matter of fact, Pilgrim, I'd rather be with the poor. I'm more comfortable. It would vex my heart to see you grow into the stuck-up respectability of some of our fine congregations. Away forever with these castes and these divisions amongst us. Let us maintain the family feeling. We're all brothers and sisters. Suffer nothing to violate it. And then there's another reason for lack of sympathy. It's produced by our ignorance of one another. We don't know one another anymore. We don't know the sufferings of our fellows. If I had brought the newspaper here today, and if I had half a mind to do so, and had read some extracts about the sufferings in Preston and Wigan and the various towns in Lancashire, you would have known much more about the distress than you know now. Or if which would do as well, you were to go next Monday with some city missionary to the East End or St. Giles or some poor district this side the water, you would say, dear me, I did not know that people really did suffer at this rate. I had no idea of it, or would I have given more to the poor? We want to be educated into the knowledge of our national poverty. We want to be taught and trained. We know more of what our fellow man can and do suffer. Oh, if the Christian church knew the immorality of London, or Portland, or Hillsborough, or Boston, or New York, or Chicago, or L.A., if you could but once see the rascality of your city gathered into one mass, your hearts would melt with woe and bitterness, and you would bow yourselves before God, crying to him for this city as one that mourns for his only son, even for his firstborn, even as Christ mourns over the lost. No doubt the abounding deception which exists among those who seek our help has checked much liberality. I think I can tell the moment a man opens his mouth to address me when a man wants to beg of me. There's such a particular wine and a sanctified unction that the moment you hear it, you think, I will give that man nothing. He's an old established beggar and gets his living by it. Seeing as I have done not scores, but hundreds of these beings, there is a tendency to get one's heart hard and callous and to say, oh, they're all deceivers. But they're not all such. There's a vast amount of real distress of a private character, a suffering which will not cry nor moan, and I take it that it ought to be your business and my business to seek out these cases. Not to stop till they come to us, but to go to them, avoiding ever with a stern discretion those ill cases which do but prey upon Christian charity, but seeking out the genuine sufferers, and give them relief. Let none of these things, great obstacles though they be, hinder your sympathy today. For none of them exists in the case which we shall have to plead this morning. The fruit of Christian sympathy will be seen in a kindly association with all Christians. We shall not shun them nor pass them by. It will be seen next in a kindly encouragement of those who want aid, constantly being ready to give a word of good advice, good cheer to the heart which is ready to faint. So, dear Christian friends, I think our experience is not so available as it might be for the good of others. In the olden times, they that feared the Lord spoke often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard. You will find your brethren often distressed in mind. You have passed through the same stage. Conversation with them will help them to escape as you've done. More especially is this conversation very valuable under the pangs of conviction. When a young man or a young woman has been awakened unto the ministry, I charge you each before God, you that have found peace in Christ, to watch the throes and agonies of the newborn, the new child, and nurse for Christ. Senior members of every Christian church should consider themselves as called by their very position to look after the young ones. We have some such here. We want a few more. We want you mothers in Israel especially to be so sympathetic that you may no sooner hear that a soul is in distress than you are in distress to tell you have poured in the oil and the wine into their wounds. I think this sympathy should be especially shown to any that backslide. There's a tendency to cut such off from the church book and then just leave them. This shouldn't be. We must look after that which is out of the way. The shepherd must leave the 99 sheep to go after the one which is gone astray. If you see one vacillating, be most careful there. If you detect in any a growing coldness, be the more anxious to foster that which remains, which is ready to die. Let a holy discipline and watchfulness be maintained over the entire church by the care and the forethought of everyone for his next door neighbor, his friend. Thus can you practically show your Christian sympathy. Show it also whenever you hear the good name of any called into doubt. Stand up for your brethren. 'Tis an ill bird that fouls its own nest, but there are some such birds around us. The moment they hear a word or a whisper against a Christian man, though a member of the same church maybe, report it, say they. Tell everybody, always pretending that they are very sorry, but all the while sucking it as a dainty morsel. The old proverb, was, we have done dinner, clear the things away, and now let us sit down and crack other men's characters. I fear me there are even some professing Christians who do that. This is not sympathy, but the malice of Satan. May God deliver you from it. Stand up for all that are your fellow soldiers. Be jealous of the honor of the regiment in which you have enlisted. But still there is no Christian sympathy in all this if it does not, when needed, prove itself by real gifts of our substance. Zealous words will not warm the cold. Delicate words will not feed the hungry. The freest speech will not free the captive or visit him in prison. The most adorned words will not clothe the naked, and the words that are most full of unction will not pour oil and wine into the wounds of the sick. Words, chaff, nothing but chaff. If there be no act, there is no sympathy. Whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? Perhaps some of my hearers this morning will say that the text and the subject are appropriate to the occasion, but that they want some spiritual food. They don't want to hear this crap. Well, you get that often, I trust here, but I am persuaded that there are times when if Christ were upon earth, he would dwell mainly upon these themes of practical Christianity. Don't just yak. I read my Master's Sermon on the Mount, and what doctrine is there in it? It is all precept from beginning to end, and so shall my sermon be this morning, not doctrine, but precept. For this I know, we want to see in the Christian world more of the practical carrying out of the loving benevolence of the Savior. What care I about the doctrines for which you fight unless they produce in you the Spirit of Christ? What care I for your forms of faith and your ceremonies if all the while you are a Nabal, a fool, wickedly saying in your heart, shall I take my bread and my water to give it unto these strangers? Oh, let your faith be a living faith, lest while you have the form of godliness you deny the power thereof. Time was when wherever a man met a Christian, he met a helper. I shall starve, said he, unless he saw a Christian's face. And then he said, now shall I be aided. But some have thrown benevolence aside. They imagine that these are old duties of a legal character. Legal, then, will I be, when in my Master's name again I say, to do good and to communicate. Forget not, for with such sacrifice God is well pleased. And then Spurgeon goes on to finish this sermon by bringing up asking aid for all the unemployed because a huge factory has shut down in Lancashire. And he does a good job of it, but I'm not going to read that part because we're not in Lancashire. I'm in Hillsboro, Oregon, a fairly comfortable little town in Oregon. Too comfortable, he thinks. Very few real Christians here. Very few Christians in this state. But I do what I can. I make these little videos, and again, very few see them. Well, Pilgrim, think on these things. Do you help your fellow man? Do you help your saved brothers and sisters? Do you help the unsaved so that they might see Christ? Think on these things. God bless. Have a blessed, blessed day.